Anyway, I had started thinking about this. We had a really rough beginning to the year, and so we weren't able to start the fast the way I would have wanted to start the fast, and so time went on, and then Wes got up recently, and he had shared something from last year, I believe it was, that God had given him, and I started thinking about exactly what Karen said, that, the Bible is testimonies from the past. We have testimonies from the past, and one of the strongest testimonies in my life that has kept me going through and God brings me back to memory actually happened about 32 years ago. And I started thinking about how I have shared it in the past, and I felt like at the end of a fast like this, God just brought it back to mind for a reason. So this, about 32 years ago, we had a fast for 3 days, and I, at the time, was fairly hypoglycemic, and so I thought, well, I'm not going to stop eating, but hey, I'll quit smoking for 3 days, because when we came here, I was still a fairly new Christian. I would show up at church in torn jeans and T-shirts, and I'd have put my cigarette out halfway to church and light it back up again. And here we came into this church with all these amazing homemaking women who cooked and dressed well and cared for their families, and I was not that at all. So I thought, well, I'll just quit smoking for 3 days. That'll be nothing, no problem. And so the fast started on Friday, and it lasted for me 6 hours. And that was it. And I thought, well, I'm still a new Christian. It was hard. That's okay. And so we came to church on Sunday, and I'm sitting there, and actually we were facing that way at the time. And Wes Mattern gets up, and he shares this testimony of, I haven't eaten in 3 days. We were fasting, and God, I got up, and I went on this bike ride, and it was like, 20 or 40 miles or something ridiculous that Wes used to do all the time. And he's like, I hadn't eaten, and I never felt more alive and stronger. And as he was talking, I was sinking in my chair and thinking, am I even a Christian? Do I even hear from God? Do I even deserve to be here? I couldn't even stop smoking for 6 hours, and this man didn't eat for 3 days and went on this bike ride and never felt more alive and more connected with God. And so as the service went on, I just was feeling smaller and smaller, and I was breaking further and further into tears. And by the end of the service, they had the altar call, and I'm thinking, well, I'm not going up there. I don't even deserve to be in this room. And something kept pushing me, and as I walked up for prayer, my body was, I was just crying. It was just inside racking quiet sobs inside of me at how low I felt. And as someone who struggled with self-image all my life, that just didn't help. So I went up, and my intention was to ask for prayer, to be stronger, to be more faithful, to just be more dedicated to God. I got up, and I was never asked what I wanted prayer for. I walked up crying, and the pastor laid hands on me and just started baptizing me in the Holy Spirit, which I had never had before, and he never asked. He just started praying that God would fill me with the Holy Spirit. And as he prayed, I was literally shaking, but as he prayed, I felt like a plug was pulled at my feet, and I could just feel like a water line going down through me. And everything on top was calm, and everything below was still shaking, and I felt it like a draining sink go right down through my feet. And it was the most insane thing I had ever felt. It was the most godly thing I was felt. The thing that hit me was the most was that I didn't feel like I deserved to be there, but God met me where I was. And he didn't care that it only lasted 6 hours for me. He cared that I went forward, that I got prayer, that I was there, and that I cared that I didn't make it. So we went home that day, and went on with the day, and somewhere in the evening I thought, oh gosh, I haven't had a cigarette all day. I should have one. So I had a cigarette. And then later that evening I thought, oh, it's been like 5 hours. I can't, and so I had another one. I drove back home to New York the next day to see my mom for her birthday, and I thought, well, it's a 5.5-hour drive. I can't do that without cigarettes. So literally for the next 3 days I was forcing myself to smoke. until it hit me, why am I doing this? I don't need it anymore. There's no physical letdown. God removed the smoking from my life altogether. And it's been 32 and a half years since I quit smoking. On September, 9th was the day that he took it from me. There have been times where I thought I was really angry or stressed or whatever, and I think, no, and God just reminds me, I took it from you last time. This time you're on your own. And that's enough for me to remember that experience and go, I don't want that in my life anymore. And through other things in my life, God has taken me back to remembering that time and said, no, you can't do this by yourself. This is something I needed to take from you, and this is something I need to do for you. So fasting is an amazing way to reconnect with God, but it's always important to think about what comes next. What comes after the fast? Does it just end there? And like Karen said, it's all about the testimony that we carry to others, whether it's something big or something small. And just to remember that if fasting was hard or impossible, or you couldn't do it, or you quit halfway through, it's okay. God will meet you where you are. You did what you could. God will take over the rest. Come up for prayer. Get a fresh filling. We're to be filled, to be being filled, to be continually filled with the Holy Spirit. So let him come up and show you what your next step is. And I brought this to remind me because when I was talking to Tim, the chapters after the fast, there's one on Holy Spirit and there's one on day 22, what's next. They're incredible chapters, so if you haven't read them yet, read them, because, boy, they spoke to me as much as the first 21 days did. And remember that God knows your heart better than you do, and you may not feel worthy, and that's good, because God's worthy. And we need to remember that as we go forward.